Incredible truth exposed, how a heartwarming act turned into a life-changing moment for all. Ellie stood in the cramped kitchen, the sun barely creeping over the horizon. The smell of burnt toast hung in the air, a testament to her late-night shift waiting tables at the diner. Jake, her bright-eyed son, shuffled in, hair tousled, eyes still heavy with sleep. "Mom, have you heard about Mr. Thompson?" he asked, his voice thick with concern. A chill ran down Ellie's spine. Mr. Thompson was a local hero, a veteran who had spent his life helping others. If something had happened to him, it felt like a crack in the very foundation of their community. Every day was a fight. Ellie worked tirelessly at 2 jobs, waking before dawn and falling into bed well past midnight. The weight of economic hardship was like a stone around her neck, yet she refused to let it drag her down. Jake had dreams of becoming an engineer, and she'd be damned if she didn't fight tooth and nail to see those dreams come true. The thought of his ambitions pushed her through the exhaustion, filled her heart with hope. Now, her heart sank again. Rumors whispered that Mr. Thompson was facing eviction. The thought ignited Ellie's instincts. How could they, as a community, let this man slip through the cracks? She refused to stand idly by. Ellie's fingers gripped the edges of the kitchen counter, determination coursing through her veins. "Mom, you're already stretched so thin," Jake interjected, a hint of worry crossing his face. "What can we do?" But Ellie was already on the move. She grabbed a notepad and headed out, pounding on doors, her voice echoing through the neighborhoods. "We can help," she called out, fueled by the urgency of compassion. Her heart raced with every response or lack of it. Some neighbors looked at her with skepticism, others brushed her off. "We're all struggling," one said. "How can we help him when we can't even help ourselves?" Outdoors, the crisp air felt heavy with reluctance. Ellie's heart ached, but she couldn't give up. She started planning a fundraiser, pouring herself into every detail. But as the days passed, the silence from the newspaper and local media was louder than the clatter of her 2 jobs. Doubt began to creep in. Was she wasting time? Was she invisible? Each unanswered email sent her spiraling deeper into despair. Just as Ellie teetered on the edge of giving up, she felt warm hands on her shoulders. "Jake." "Mom," he said softly, "this is what you've taught me. The world doesn't change without people who care. Remember why you started this?" His voice, a lifeline to hope, ignited something in her that she thought was lost. "Why are we fighting?" she asked, suddenly aware that their struggle was larger than Mr. Thompson. It was about their community. It was about dreams and the fear that lived in the shadows. Soon, Ellie found herself standing in a town hall meeting, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mr. Thompson's eviction is just the beginning," she cried. "We're all at risk of losing what little we have." Her voice rose above the murmurs of disbelief, awakening something in the hearts of her neighbors. Fear turned to recognition, and recognition turned into a shared understanding. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that raw moment, as tears mingled with flickers of courage, Ellie could feel the weight of despair lifting just slightly. They were not alone. Yet, as the crowd began to murmur and gesture toward solidarity, a heavy question loomed: would they rise together, or would fear shatter their fragile hope? With doubt still whispering in her ear, Ellie stood there, unsure of the answer but certain of one thing: the struggle for justice had only just begun. The meeting room buzzed with a mix of emotions: confusion, anger, and an underlying thread of solidarity. Ellie looked around, noticing not just faces, but the flicker of determination forming where once there had been resignation. It was as if the spirit of the community was awakening, stirred by her words. Yet Ellie knew this was just the first step. The fight was far from over. As people gathered their thoughts, murmurs transformed into fragments of conversations. One neighbor, Melanie, raised her hand tentatively. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice tremulous yet hopeful. "We can't just march in there blindly." Ellie felt the weight of her gaze. She had opened the door to a challenge, and now it was time to guide them through it. "We rally together. We plan a fundraiser, a community event to not only support Mr. Thompson but to show that we're stronger as a unit." The conviction in her voice grew. It was not just about Mr. Thompson anymore. "This is bigger than one man. It's about our home." The crowd murmured again, and Ellie could almost see the idea sparking in their eyes. James, an elderly man who had lived in the neighborhood all his life, stood slowly. "I've got some old equipment from my garage. We can hold a garage sale. Maybe even a bake sale. Yes. If we join forces, we can make this work." Ellie's heart swelled with pride. Ideas bounced around the room like fireflies on a summer night: bake sales, car washes, potluck dinners. The more they brainstormed, the more vibrant the energy became. Jake watched the scene unfold, a grin spreading across his face. It was inspiring to see his mom lead this movement, her spirit igniting others just like it had fueled him. "Mom, maybe a local band could play to attract more people. You know, to bring in a crowd." His suggestion floated in the air, and the meeting erupted into laughter and applause, buoyed by a greater shared purpose. Hours later, Ellie stood in the kitchen again, this time with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Flyers lay scattered on the table, detailing their plans for the fundraiser. There would be music, food, and laughter, a celebration of their community spirit. But in the back of her mind, uncertainty lingered. Would it be enough? Would they actually have the power to change the course of someone's life? "Mom, this looks amazing," Jake said, flipping through the papers. "You really got everyone involved." "It's a start, honey," she replied cautiously. "But we have to deliver. We need to show them what we're made of. If we're going to help Mr. Thompson, we can't just throw a party, we need to spark a movement." In that moment, Ellie felt a surge of resolve. If they could bring the whole community together, then they could change not just Mr. Thompson's fate but their own as well. Underneath it all, she sensed something monumental stirring, a movement born from shared stories and struggles. As days turned into a whirlwind of preparations, Ellie found herself not only building an event but also opening the door to connections she never expected. Neighbors who had barely exchanged a word now shared deep conversations over coffee. Acts of kindness multiplied, creating an infectious sense of hope. Then came a knock at the door. Ellie opened it to find a familiar face: Mr. Thompson, standing there with his weathered but warm smile. "I hear there's a fundraiser for me," he said, a glint of light in his eyes. "Mr. Thompson!" Ellie exclaimed, surprise flooding through her. "We were just talking about you." His presence alone filled the atmosphere with nostalgia and purpose. "Ellie, you don't have to do this for me," he started, but her determination cut him off. "Yes, we do. You've done so much for this community, now it's time we do something for you." The tension that had loomed darkly over Ellie began to lift, light dancing around them. But as gratitude filled the air, whispers of something deeper hung unaddressed. How would Mr. Thompson respond to their efforts, not just for him, but for the entire community? But was the community ready for the change they hoped to usher in? A quiet uncertainty lingered as Ellie offered Mr. Thompson a seat, the plans brightening before them like the sun setting on a vibrant day. What if this one act of kindness could ignite a chain reaction of hope in their town? Would they be able to save not just Mr. Thompson, but each other in the process? As Ellie gestured for Mr. Thompson to sit down, her heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. This simple invitation felt monumental. She wanted him to see that they were genuinely committed to making a difference, not just for him, but for the entire neighborhood. She needed him to realize how interconnected they all were. "Ellie, you really shouldn't tea." Mr. Thompson began again, but this time Ellie could see the cracks of vulnerability in his steadfast demeanor. "Please, let us do this," Ellie replied gently. "You've been a pillar for us all. It's time we show you the strength of our community." He chuckled softly, shaking his head as if trying to dismiss her words. But Ellie could see the glimmer of gratitude in his eyes. The seeds of hope were beginning to root, and she would nurture them. The next few days were a blur of activity. The fundraiser became a topic of conversation everywhere, on porches, in backyards, and at the corner store. People began dropping off donations. Baked goods appeared on her doorstep, and more cracked open the barbecues for the potluck. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. On the morning of the event, Ellie woke early. The sun peeked over the trees, a warm glow spilling into her kitchen. She sipped her coffee, glancing over the hundreds of flyers scattered across the table, promising fun, food, and togetherness. But beneath that excitement lurked a knot in her stomach. What if they didn't raise enough money? What if Mr. Thompson didn't feel the love they poured into this effort? The clock ticked closer to the start time, and a steady stream of cars began to fill the street. Neighbors came with their children, chatting and laughing, while others brought in decorations and tables. Each cheerful face calmed Ellie's nerves a little more. Jake rushed through the door, his hair still tousled. "Mom! They're here." "Who's here?" she asked, flipping through her notes, trying to stay organized. "The band. And Mr. Thompson's here too." Her breath caught in her throat. Would he truly feel this wave of support? She stepped outside, her heart pounding as she spotted Mr. Thompson standing by his car, looking almost shy amidst the crowd. He spotted her and approached, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Looks like you've got quite the event going here," he said, his smile uneasy but genuine. "Just a little something to show our appreciation," she replied, lowering her voice. "We want you to see how loved you are." The community gathered, bustling with energy. Children laughed, friends hugged, and the smell of grilling burgers filled the air. For the first time, Ellie felt hope shift into something tangible. As the local band kicked off their first song, the atmosphere transformed. People danced freely, laughter echoed like a heartbeat. Ellie stood by Mr. Thompson, watching his face light up with wonder. She knew she had to do more than just throw a party. She had to make him feel that he was not alone. When the laughter and music swirled around them, Ellie took a deep breath. "Mr. Thompson, I know you think we're doing this just for you. But it's really for all of us, everyone who has been touched by your kindness over the years." He nodded slowly, his expression shifting. "You've made this old heart feel something I thought was lost," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Ellie caught the tear welling in his eye and felt the weight of her own heart. What if this moment could awaken the spirit of the entire community? What if Mr. Thompson shared the stories of how he had helped everyone? Then came a hush as one of the younger neighbors climbed onto a makeshift stage, a microphone in hand. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The crowd quieted, curiosity buzzing in the air. Today is about more than celebrating Mr. Thompson. It's about us. Our stories. Who's ready to share? As people stepped forward to share their tales, Ellie felt a swelling warmth within her, realizing they were all ready to connect like never before. But amidst this awakening, a part of her sensed a deeper truth lurking, waiting to be revealed. What stories would emerge from the crowd today? What truths would shake their foundations, binding them tighter together? The neighborhood quieted in anticipation, each person's heart beating in sync with the vibrant sounds around them. A young woman named Sarah adjusted the microphone in her trembling hands, her voice shaking at first but gaining strength as she spoke. "Mr. Thompson, you remember the winter of '97? That snowstorm was insane." The crowd chuckled, nodding and murmuring. Mr. Thompson's eyes sparkled with memories. "How could I forget? I thought I'd be digging out forever. Right? But you You just showed up with your old truck and dug out not just our driveway but half the street," Sarah continued, her gratitude overflowing. "You brought hot cocoa and those ridiculous snow hats for the kids. It was like a winter wonderland party." Laughter erupted, the feeling of community swelling further. Ellie stood by Mr. Thompson, feeling her chest swell with pride as she watched him. Each story was a new thread weaving into the fabric of their shared lives, a reminder of the joys they'd experienced together, despite the hardships. An older man from down the street stepped up, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You saw me when I lost my wife. You didn't just knock on my door. You camped out on my porch to make sure I was okay. Brought me meals when I forgot to eat." Mr. Thompson shifted, a raw emotion crossing his face. "I couldn't bear to think of anyone suffering alone," he replied, his voice wavering. Ellie felt a lump in her throat, the warmth of the stories radiating around her like sunlight. It wasn't just a party anymore, it was a full-blown celebration of humanity, a collective pulse pounding with love and gratitude. A little girl stepped up next. "Mr. Thompson? You helped me find my puppy last summer. You climbed that big tree even when you said you didn't like heights. You promised you'd stick with me until we found him. And we did." She beamed, her pride filling the air. "That little rascal was faster than I thought." He chuckled, wiping a tear from his cheek. The crowd joined in her laughter, recognizing the depth of his compassion, but then the atmosphere shifted slightly. A subtle tension hovered in the air as another neighbor, an older gentleman who had always kept to himself, approached the microphone. "There's something not everyone knows," he began. Silence descended like a thick cloud. Ellie's heart raced, sensing the weight of whatever was to come. This community has been through a lot, and Mr. Thompson has always been there. But what you don't know is that he has a story of his own. He lost his family years ago in an accident. He doesn't just give out of kindness. He's filling a void. He's giving because he wants to heal, too. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ellie's mind raced. She'd always known Mr. Thompson was special, but to hear about his past. It was a revelation. A thread she never anticipated weaving into the fabric of their celebration. Mr. Thompson's face paled, struggling with embarrassment and the vulnerability laid bare before everyone. The tension hung like thick fog, the joy now mingling with a profound sense of understanding. The crowd absorbed his truth, their expressions shifting from shock to compassion. Ellie moved closer to him, sensing the turmoil within. She then turned and faced the crowd, heart pounding. "Thank you for sharing that. It shows how truly interconnected we all are." "But it doesn't stop with Mr. Thompson," she urged, her voice rising with determination. "As we share today, let us remember that healing doesn't just come from giving. It comes from belonging, from sharing together." The crowd murmured with agreement, yet Ellie felt a sense of urgency. What would happen next? Would they step up and truly connect not just with Mr. Thompson but with each other? "Who else has a story?" she asked, trying to reignite that bright energy. "Let us heal together." As more neighbors began to step forward, the weight of openness hung in the air. What other truths would come to light? What deeper connections were waiting just beneath the surface? With every tale shared, the promise of community transformed from mere words into a powerful bond. But as Ellie looked at Mr. Thompson, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. A man with a weathered face and kind eyes approached the microphone next. It was George, the retired firefighter who lived around the corner. He'd always been a quiet presence in the neighborhood, known more for his nods in passing than for any outpourings of emotion. But today was different. The spirit of the moment pulled him out, pushed him to share. "Mr. Thompson," George began, his voice wavering slightly. "You were there for me when I thought I couldn't breathe. I lost my hearing for a while after a fire just like that. And you sat with me at the local diner, day after day, teaching me how to read lips. You didn't just help me hear again, you reminded me I wasn't alone. The crowd broke into murmurs of surprise and admiration. It seemed like each revelation opened the floodgates for more. George paused, wiping away a tear of gratitude. The weight of silence was now shifting, everyone could feel it. Your kindness wasn't just an act, he continued, eyes locking on Mr. Thompson. It was a lifeline. In a world that can feel so isolating, you made a difference, not just for me, but for all of us. Before Mr. Thompson could respond, another voice rose above the rest. It was Mary, a single mom who often felt the strain of juggling her responsibilities alone. You helped fix my leaky roof last spring, Mr. Thompson, she shouted, her voice trembling with emotion. But it wasn't about the roof, it was about the way you took the time to teach my son how to handle a hammer. You've made us family. I've never forgotten how you told him, real men help others, even when it's hard. Cheers erupted from the crowd, rallying around their shared memories. It was contagious now, stories cascaded forth like melting snow. Each tale painted vivid snapshots of Mr. Thompson's impact. He was more than a neighbor, he was a beacon of hope. Ellie stood by Mr. Thompson, watching the way he absorbed each heartfelt story, the color returning to his cheeks as the weight of his past began to lift, if only a little. The love in the room was palpable, wrapped around everyone like a warm blanket. However, beneath the surface, a nagging worry tugged at Ellie. But what happens after today? She thought. She longed for this connection to extend beyond a single gathering. Would they keep the spirit alive tomorrow? Would they truly keep coming together? As if reading her mind, a young boy called out from the back, "Can we do this again? Please." His wide eyes sparkled with hope and innocence. A soft rumble of agreement washed over the crowd, and Ellie made her way to the front. Yes. We can create something here, a space for everyone. We can meet regularly, share our stories, keep supporting each other. Mr. Thompson, finding his voice again, stepped forward. "I'd like to help organize it," he said, a genuine smile breaking through. "This is just the beginning. I need all of you just as much as you need me." The crowd erupted in applause, excitement filling the air. It wasn't just about Mr. Thompson anymore, it was about them, their stories, and the connections forging right before their eyes. As the night continued, Ellie felt a tingle of joy in her heart. They were building something beautiful, something lasting. Yet, as the celebration began to wind down, she couldn't shake that shadow of concern. What if the moment faded? What if life got in the way? "Let us meet next week," someone shouted, and cheers erupted again. But in the corner of her mind, a lingering question remained: could they keep this momentum going? Her thoughts danced with possibilities, leaving an undeniable hunger in her chest. What more could they discover about each other? What new challenges might lie ahead on this path? In the embrace of newfound community, Ellie felt excitement simmering. This was only the beginning of their journey. The air crackled with anticipation for what lay ahead, and she couldn't help but wonder, would they rise to meet their challenges together? The following week passed in a whirlwind. Everyday life carried on, but the air felt different, charged with the promise of something new. Ellie watched as people waved and greeted one another with more warmth than before. She noticed neighbors who usually hurried past each other now paused to talk, their laughter filling the streets. On Saturday, they gathered in the park as planned. What had started as an idea grew into a hope, and that hope blossomed into a vibrant scene. Families set up picnic blankets, elderly couples shared stories from their youth, and children chased each other around the playground, their spirits high. Mr. Thompson arrived early, bringing along cookies and lemonade. He was determined to make this a welcoming space, something they could all call their own. The warmth of the sun felt like a shared embrace, kind and generous. "Okay, everyone." Mr. Thompson clapped his hands to gather attention. "I've got an idea for today. Let us share not just our stories, but our skills. We each have something valuable to offer." The group murmured with excitement. "I can show you how to plant a garden. called out the retired school teacher, Mrs. Wilkins. "And I can teach the kids how to ride bikes," chimed in a dad who had brought his son. Ellie felt a swell of pride as people began to share their ideas. She stepped forward, her heart pounding. "And I can help organize a book club. We can read together and discuss our favorites." When she finished speaking, she caught Mr. Thompson's eye. His look of encouragement made her feel brave, as if she were a part of something grander. But a flicker of doubt still flickered in her mind. What if this didn't last? As the activities began, laughter mixed with the sounds of children playing. Stories were exchanged, skills showcased, and friendships started to take root. It was everything Ellie had hoped for. Yet, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the park, shadows of worry returned. With the day winding down, everyone gathered in a circle to share what they had learned. The all-encompassing energy pulsed through them, binding the community even closer. Ellie listened intently, her heart swelling with hope, until a loud pop shattered the moment. Tension filled the air as a child nearby let out cries of fear and panic. Ellie's attention snapped, her maternal instincts kicking in. Before she could react, Mr. Thompson rushed forward, his calm demeanor instantaneously calming the child. He knelt down, speaking softly as he dusted the little one's scraped knee. "Hey there, it's okay. Accidents happen. Let's take some deep breaths together." Ellie exchanged glances with others in the group, a silent acknowledgement that they were witnessing something profound. Mr. Thompson wasn't just a figure of support, he was a pillar of strength, not just for the child, but for all of them. Gradually, the child's sobs faded. Mr. Thompson's gentle care reminded everyone that they were not just participants of an event, but a tightly knit community where each person mattered, where vulnerabilities could be expressed freely. As the gathering came to an end, Ellie felt a familiar pang of anxiety. Could this truly continue? Could they sustain this supportive energy? With unspoken agreement, they all whispered plans for the next event, creating a collective push towards something greater. Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning, but as she mulled over these thoughts, a small group of teenagers approached her, fingers fidgeting. "We were wondering, could we organize a game night?" one of them asked, hope in her eyes. Ellie's heart raced. Could this be the spark they needed to engage everyone, young and old alike? The possibility hung in the air like the twilight about to descend. Her smile widened, bright with possibility. "Absolutely. That sounds incredible. Let's make it happen." Little did they know, this idea would not just bring laughter and fun, but uncover deeper truths that could challenge their newfound friendships in ways they never expected. As darkness fell, Ellie wondered what else they might discover together and if the strength of their community would be enough to face any storm that approached. The following week, anticipation crackled in the air. Ellie could hardly focus on her daily tasks, her mind racing with ideas for the game night. She pictured laughter echoing through the community center, friends joking, children giggling, and the warmth of shared moments binding them even tighter. As the evening approached, it was time to set the plan into action. On the day of the game night, Ellie arrived early, heart fluttering with excitement. The community center was aglow with lights strung along the walls, their warm tones welcoming. She set out tables adorned with colorful board games, decked out playing cards, and snacks that filled the air with tempting scents. One by one, people trickled in, their faces lighting up in recognition. Familiar nods turned into broad smiles, and soon the place buzzed with energy. Ellie directed everyone smoothly, helping the children find games suited for them while the adults gathered for a more strategic showdown at the poker table. She felt a wave of joy wash over her as she witnessed connections forming. "Let's team up," a little girl shouted excitedly, tugging on her mom's sleeve. The mom smiled, her eyes sparkling at the infectious enthusiasm. Ellie knew this wasn't just about the games. This was about breaking barriers. As the night unfolded, Mr. Thompson floated around, checking in on each group, sharing hearty laughter, and turning moments of quiet into memories worth keeping. He earned their trust and affection, becoming a symbol of resilience. Ellie caught sight of him helping a shy teenager who had been hovered in the back corner, showing him card tricks that made the boy's face light up. But as the games continued, Ellie noticed a group of older teens gathered tightly. Their conversation dulled the air slightly, a stark contrast to the laughter around them. A knot formed in her stomach. "Are you guys okay?" she asked, moving toward them. The group looked up, silence hanging heavily for a moment before one of them spoke up with hesitation. "We've been talking about how hard it is for some of us, the pressure at school, expectations from home." Ellie paused, her heart aching. This wasn't just a game night. This was a chance for these kids to share their burdens. "You're not alone in this, you know," she encouraged softly. As she spoke, the rawness in her voice seemed to draw the group closer. They began to open up, sharing their fears, frustrations, and the high walls they felt trapped behind. It was a turning point. One by one, they peeled back layers, revealing vulnerabilities they kept hidden. Ellie offered reassurance, connecting with each of them, and then it happened. The group began to laugh, the weight of shared experiences transforming their worried gazes into hopeful ones. "Maybe we could start a support group," one teen suggested. "With games, of course." Ellie beamed. This was it. What had started as a game night had evolved into a safe space for healing and growth. She knew that this evening would resonate far beyond the walls of the community center. As night fell and the laughter started to fade, Ellie stood observing the joyous chaos around her. She felt a profound sense of belonging. They weren't just a community anymore, they were a family, tied together by the beauty of shared moments, yet, as her heart swelled with pride and happiness, she couldn't shake the feeling that this felt too fragile. Would they be able to sustain this newfound bond? When the last people bid farewell, Ellie noticed a small flicker of hope in the shy boy's eyes who had initially lingered at the back of the room. He turned to her and said, "I think I'd like to share my story more often." Her heart skipped. This was just the beginning. They had ventured into something far deeper than games, something that could change lives. But as she turned toward her car, uncertainty seeped in. What challenges might this new openness bring? Little did she know, the very act of sharing would soon put their fragile connections to the ultimate test. As the days passed after game night, Ellie felt the weight of anticipation again. It wasn't just the weekend that beckoned, now it was the promise of transformation. The teens had been energized, and she could sense a ripple of excitement and anxiety in the air, as if everyone were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Walking through the community center, Ellie glanced at the bulletin board. There it was, a colorful flyer announcing the first support group meeting. "Game on, share your story." It felt surreal, yet here was proof that they were ready to pursue deeper connections. Each time a familiar face wandered in, her stomach fluttered. Would they all show up? Would they feel the same spark as they did during game night? On the evening of the support group's debut, Ellie arrived early. She stocked the tables with snacks again and even set out bright markers for the kids to decorate their own game boards. It was festive, inviting, but there was an undercurrent of tension. She could feel different emotions dancing around in the room: excitement, apprehension, hope, each one swirling together. Ellie paced near the entrance, glancing out the window. At exactly 6, the doors began to swing open. A few familiar faces emerged at first, just the kids who had shared their stories a few nights before. Their smiles radiated warmth, though each step toward the room was laden with hesitation. "Hey, everyone!" she called out, drawing them closer. "I'm so glad to see you. Let us celebrate this new beginning." The first teens entered slowly, forming a circle. Ellie offered reassurance as they settled down. She could see the shy boy from game night, seated cross-legged on the floor, poised with determination. His expression held both vulnerability and courage, something Ellie admired deeply. As the conversations began to flow, the atmosphere was full of shared laughter and silent tears. They were opening up about everything, their fears around high school, family dynamics, friendships. Ellie listened intently, offering her presence as a net, catching them in moments of vulnerability, and then it clicked. A girl spoke up, breaking the tension with her raw honesty. "I hate feeling alone. It's like nobody really gets how much pressure there is to get perfect grades." Her words shook the air. Heads nodded in agreement, eyes widened in empathy. The atmosphere shifted. They were now not just friends but a solid support network. "Can we take turns like we did before, sharing our experiences?" the shy boy suggested, his voice shaking but resolute. "I want to step out of my comfort zone." Ellie's heart raced with pride as he took the lead. One by one, they shared stories, laughter interspersed with moments of reflection. They were stitching together more than just stories, they were weaving a tapestry of trust, but amidst the warmth, a shadow loomed. Just as the energy intensified, the door swung open abruptly. A few older teens, the same group that had been isolated during game night, stepped in. Silence fell. Their presence felt heavy, a reminder of the divisions that still existed. Ellie took a breath, feeling both anger and fear. Would their willingness to connect crumble in the face of this sudden confrontation? "Why are you here?" one of the newcomers asked, arms crossed. The tone was defensive, questioning the genuineness of their gathering. Ellie felt the atmosphere shift again, tightening like a rope around her heart. "We're here to share and support one another," she replied, searching for the right words. "We want to lift each other up." But there was an undercurrent of tension, flickers of defiance against their bond. Would this night strengthen their community even more, or would it expose the fractures lurking just below the surface? Time stood still as the room held its breath, waiting for the next moment to unfold. The heavy silence lingered, stretching out like an uncomfortable blanket. Ellie's heart pounded loud enough to drown out the whispers of doubt swimming in her mind. She glanced at the kids seated in front of her, their faces betraying a mix of confusion and apprehension. The energy had flipped gears, and it felt fragile. One brave girl, Emma, whose honesty had struck a chord just moments ago, shifted in her seat. "We just want to support each other. Everyone has stuff they're dealing with." Her voice was steady, almost defiant. It was the kind of courage Ellie hoped would echo within the group. The older teens exchanged glances, casting skeptical looks at one another. One of them, Jake, stepped forward slightly, still holding that defensive posture. "Support or just another way to whine about your problems?" Ellie felt a surge of frustration. This was not just about whining. This was about breaking through barriers that kept them from seeing one another. But rather than snap back, she took a deep breath and responded calmly. "Everyone has struggles. What we're doing here isn't about complaining, it's about sharing what weighs us down and finding strength together." A murmur traveled through the group, soft and uncertain. Ellie kept her eyes on the newcomers, willing them to see that this was the moment for rebirth, not just for the support group but for everyone involved. "You're welcome to join us. We'd love to hear your stories too." Jake narrowed his eyes for a moment, taken aback by Ellie's offer. There was a battle of expressions playing out in the group. The younger teens were cautious, while some of the older ones seemed intrigued. Was there a crack in their tough facade? The shy boy, emboldened by Emma's courage, addressed the newcomers. "We know what it feels like to be alone. If you want to share, we're all ears. We can learn from each other." Ellie felt hope swell in her chest. It was a small step, but those tiny steps often turned into leaps. The silence twisted again, as if a bridge was being constructed, linking the two groups. The older teens seemed to weigh their options, glancing from each other to the smaller circle of expectant faces. Another girl, detached from the tension, chimed in hesitantly, "Sometimes I just want to tell someone how tired I am or how lonely." Her confession seemed to spark something in the room, as if she ignited a fire that had long been extinguished. Gradually, one of the older girls approached the circle with tentative steps. "I've been there. I deal with everything, grades, expectations." Her voice cracked slightly, vulnerability spilling out. It's not easy. Ellie felt the warmth of connection rising. Hope had slipped through the crevices, beginning to wrap itself around them all. With each exchange, tension melted, replaced by stories of shared struggles. Even Jake, who initially stood rigidly at the entrance, took a step forward, his walls beginning to crumble. I guess we're all under pressure to be perfect. Maybe we could help each other. A feeling of electricity buzzed in the room. The magic of connection was real. They were no longer defenders of their groups, they were human beings sharing pain, laughter, and vulnerability. Ellie's heart swelled with elation, but she knew this was just the dawn. With a deep breath, she said, "Every story counts. We have to keep sharing. But something tells me I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface." And then, before anyone could respond, a sudden loud knock echoed through the room, jarring them back to reality. The eyes of both groups turned toward the door, a new figure soon shifting into view. One that could change everything they had just started to build. What discipline lurked behind that knock? What secrets were about to spill into this moment of unexpected cohesion? The room was still and silent, tension thick in the air. Ellie felt her heart race in anticipation as she glanced toward the door. What loomed beyond it might be crucial and perhaps even life-changing. As the door creaked open, a tall figure stood framed in the doorway, casting a long shadow into the circle of light inside. It was Ms. Adams, their beloved high school principal, known for her fierce dedication to the community. Her face wore a concern that sent whispers tangling through the gathered crowd. "Can I join you?" she asked, her voice steady but warm. The room collectively exhaled, as if bracing for an announcement. "Of course," Ellie replied, gesturing for her to take a seat, sensing this could be a pivotal moment. As Ms. Adams settled into the circle, she looked each person in the eye, a fierce intensity radiating from her. "I know things have been tough recently. I've heard murmurs of struggles, pressures at school, and I'm here to let you know your voices matter. Your stories matter. And I want to help." A wave of emotion washed over the room, propelling everyone forward. Ellie felt revitalized, knowing there was someone in a position of authority who truly cared. It felt like a bridge connecting their struggles with someone who could amplify their stories. "Thank you for being here," Ellie said, nodding, as hope surged through her veins. Ms. Adams continued, "Let us create a safe space where you can express yourselves. I'm extending an invitation for a Student and Community Inclusion Council where any issue can be addressed together." Cheers erupted, enthusiasm melting into joyous agreement. Suddenly, Ellie recognized a newfound purpose washing over the group. They were ready to dive into the deep waters of community and change. The shy boy from before, emboldened, stood to speak. "Can we use that space to keep sharing? We've got so much that we can help each other through. I'm tired of feeling alone." Ms. Adams smiled, nodding vigorously. "Absolutely. Let's make this a platform for everyone, students, families, and neighbors alike. We'll plan regular meetings where we can share insights, create projects, and connect." With each word, the shadows of doubt began to lift. Suddenly, the narratives of pressure and loneliness evolved into visions of empowerment, unity, and support. Ellie glanced around, catching Jake's eye. His smile mirrored all the hope that surged within her heart. As the evening wore on, stories flowed freely from everyone: the shy boy who had found his voice, the older teens, even Ms. Adams shared moments where she too felt vulnerable, reinforcing the idea that they were all in this together. Ellie noticed the walls breaking down, connections building stronger than before. The room brightened with laughter, bubbling over into shared stories of success and struggle. Hands shot up, inviting others into the dance of honesty. Ellie stepped back, letting the warmth envelop her, surrendering to the magic unfolding. It was no longer just about survival, it was about connection. Finally, Ms. Adams leaned in close. "We need to write these stories down. Capture them. Let us create a community newsletter that chronicles our journey. Let us make it known that we're here for one another and that we're not giving up." More cheers erupted, and for the first time, Ellie felt undeniably light, as if she could soar. From that night forward, things changed. The awkwardness melted away as they embarked on the journey of mutual understanding, weaving tales of resilience that transcended their separate lives. Weeks turned into momentum, and the community came together like blooming flowers. The newsletter took shape, featuring heartfelt stories from everyone, including Mr. Thompson's tales of compassion, the shy boy's courage, and insights from every corner of their beautifully diverse neighborhood. And as their bonds deepened, they faced challenges with laughter and grace. When the struggles of life rose to meet them, instead of crumbling, they rose together like a phoenix from the ashes, ready to shine. In the months that followed, Ellie realized that their mission had transformed into something remarkable. They were no longer defined by their struggles, but by how they rose from them together. They became each other's biggest champions, igniting change in not just their lives but for future generations. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow over the park where they first gathered, Ellie stood surrounded by familiar faces. Mr. Thompson, Jake, Ms. Adams, all there, unified in spirit. She smiled, feeling the bonds they forged echo back louder than any fear could shout. People need each other, she thought to herself, overwhelmed with gratitude. And at that moment, she knew what they had created would last, a home born not from bricks and mortar, but from shared stories, strength, and love, something that could weather any storm together. As this beautiful chapter closed, Ellie looked toward the horizon. The world was waiting, full of challenges, joys, and opportunities. Hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Your voice matters. This is the moment to show your support.